2011 Minnesota Lynx were the second great dynasty in the WNBA, a powerhouse core of Seimone Augustus, Lindsay Whalen, Rebekkah Brunson, and Maya Moore. This Big Four were a part of all four Lynx championships between 2011 and 2017, an 8-year run of greatness, selflessness, and sisterhood. But how this team accomplished this? That's a story of injuries, trades, a dispersal draft, and one of the luckiest draft moments in WNBA history. The seeds were planted in 2006 when the Minnesota Lynx had the #1 overall pick and selected Seimone Augustus, the engine before the engine. Augustus was a game changer, but the Lynx had a long way to go. But this move got the ball rolling. The season Minnesota drafted Augustus first overall, they lost their award-winning head coach midway through the season, leaving the team to finish with a 10-24 record. Things like this were just showing how chaotic it was as a franchise. And for someone like Seimone Augustus, it was almost torture. After winning back-to-back National Player of the Year awards at LSU, it was a new world of frustration, as they wouldn't make the playoffs for the first 5 seasons of her professional career. Now it was more than just about losing games. It was officially wondering what this W thing was going to look like compared to all the greatness in college. In hindsight, she was the anchor they needed. After some really tough years, returning from injury and working through all the disappointment, 2009 would be a game changer. A bit bittersweet, as the great Cheryl Reeve would start her tenure as the Lynx head coach, but that same year, Augustus would go down with an ACL injury that had her right in the bench, and it was almost like starting over as they started their uphill climb. 2009 was also the year the Sacramento Monarchs folded, so the Lynx were able to select Rebekkah Brunson in the dispersal draft. For her part, Brunson was a defensive juggernaut and a WNBA champion before she came to the Lynx. She was a monster on the glass and would lead the league in offensive rebounds per game and total offensive rebounds in 2007, giving her team multiple second and third chances every night, turning those missed shots into extra possessions before the defense knew what hit them. Brunson immediately changed the defensive identity that the team had and would become, already giving Seimone and the fans a glimmer of hope by bringing the championship mentality. Next, Minnesota would go get their floor general. Lindsay Whalen played like she had eyes in the back of her head. She wasn't the fastest point guard or the flashiest, but she played with that Minnesota toughness. The Lynx now had a floor general, someone who could push the pace, orchestrate the offense, and lead her team to the right buckets. She spent 5 years on the Connecticut Sun before being traded to the Minnesota Lynx, even though the Lynx did want to select her way back in 2004 on draft night. Coming out of college, she could drop 20 points and still give you 5 assists. She was like the corner piece to the puzzle. Everyone else could just do their thing. Lindsay Whalen was going to make sure the right person had the ball. Now, 2011 adds to the lore of this Minnesota Lynx dynasty. It's hard to not wonder if the basketball gods were smiling down on them, because somehow the Lynx ended up with the #1 pick, which would turn out to be Maya Moore, a 6-foot forward out of Connecticut. Moore had won 3 consecutive Wade trophies as the best player in women's basketball, the only player to have done so, and she had already led those UConn Huskies to 2 championships while in college. She was a once-in-a-generation type of player, and she fell right into the Lynx lap once they won the lottery. So after all those seasons spent at the bottom of the WNBA food chain, the Lynx had one of the best cores in the league. Moore, Augustus, Brunson, and Whalen. And boy, did this core work well together. They did more than that. They complemented each other's games. They each did something so exceptionally well, and working together, they became their own super team. Whalen as the floor general means she's reading the defense like a chess player, getting to the rim, either finishing or dishing to a wide open shooter. Seimone brought the mid-range game, that automatic shot from 15 feet. Defenders knew it was coming and still couldn't stop it. Rebekkah Brunson bringing her championship poise to every defensive stop that led to a series of runs. And Maya Moore being the Swiss Army knife that could guard multiple positions, hit clutch shots, and make the winning play when the game was on the line. The Lynx had so much talent in just these 4 players, and over the next 8 years, it would make the Lynx one of the most successful franchises in league history. So while the change wasn't necessarily overnight, it definitely felt like it. As the four found their rhythm together on the court, they continued to evolve their individual games. They entered 2011 ready to contend for a championship. Funnily enough, they lost their first game to the Sparks, but would finish the season with a 27-7 record. That core four went crazy that year. All four made the All-Star team, with Maya Moore being a starter. Lindsay Whalen won Peak Performer that year. Rebekkah Brunson was on the All-Defensive First Team. Maya Moore was the Rookie of the Year, and Cheryl Reeve was the Coach of the Year. They finished with the best regular season record in franchise history. The Lynx were the scariest thing coming. They went into the playoffs on a high and ran through the league. Their chemistry and winning mentality on full display. Whalen running the offense and carving up the defense to get to the rim. Brunson showing off her rebounding skills, averaging 10.8 rebounds in the postseason. Augustus led the team in scoring with 22 points per game in the playoffs. And Moore was the X factor, putting up a good stat line and making important plays. They only lost one game to the San Antonio Silver Stars in the first round, but then swept through the Phoenix Mercury and the Atlanta Dream, with Seimone Augustus taking home Finals MVP, being the leading scorer throughout a majority of the playoffs. The first one is always special, and the core four definitely earned it. Taj McWilliams-Franklin was their starting center in 2011 and going into the 2012 season. They started off the season hot, winning their first 10 games somewhat comfortably. They did get hit with the injury bug throughout the season, but still finished with a 27-7 record. They would go into the playoffs the number one seed and pretty confident about defending their championship title. They would run through those first two series and meet the Indiana Fever in the finals. Now the wild part is the Minnesota Lynx had won the season series against the Fever, so they went in very confident, but it was actually a coaching showdown. Lynn Dunn, a former professional basketball player, coached the Fever to their first championship. Now they essentially limited Maya Moore and got key games from other players like Shavonte Zealous, who scored 30 in game 3. 30 points from your fourth option. That's literally the type of game that steals championships. Tamika Catchings stopped that first repeat, humbling the core four right there on the Indiana home court. This loss definitely stung. After getting it done the previous season, they could practically taste that back-to-back, and now had to face it being ripped away. Before the beginning of the 2013 season, Taj McWilliams-Franklin would retire, and the Lynx would fill that position with Janelle McCarville, an old college running mate of Lindsay Whalen's. 2013 would mostly see the league focus on the Phoenix Mercury. So the Minnesota Lynx got to play their game and return to form without all the watchful eyes of the media. And maybe that helped. The core four would all be WNBA All-Stars. All four would make an All-WNBA team. And Maya Moore was having such a great year, she finished just shy of making MVP to Candace Parker. They quietly finished with the best record in the league. While the reigning champs were down with injuries, the Lynx would face the Seattle Storm in the first round, the Phoenix Mercury in the conference finals, and the Atlanta Dream in the finals. They didn't lose one game in that playoff run. They dominated, absolutely wiped the floor with every team that stood in front of them. Maya Moore took home finals MVP as the core four rose back to the top. That first championship wiped away all those playoffless years. This second one proved they belonged right at the top. 2013 was somewhat a perfect year for the Minnesota Lynx. And going into 2014, you pretty much saw them come back the same, which usually isn't the best sign, but they were still pretty impressive. Now that season they lost Rebekkah Brunson for a decent portion, but did get her back before the playoffs. In the regular season, we saw Maya Moore earn one Player of the Month award, while Moore, Augustus, and Whalen would make the All-Star team. They finished with the second best record in the league, going 25-9. So going into the playoffs, the defending champions were still making waves in the league, so they had a nice chance at the chip and were the favorites to take it home. But this time, the Lynx would meet the Mercury before even making it to the finals. This was the series to watch that year. The Mercury still had Diana Taurasi in her bag and Brittany Griner in the paint. DeWanna Bonner was their go-to wing on this championship run. The Lynx did take them to Game 3, but the reality was the league had figured them out. This was their second failed repeat, and it was hard to imagine how they could really immediately bounced back. With your core still putting up all-star numbers, the front office had a conundrum ahead of them. But kind of like Maya Moore fell into their lap, they were about to add the one piece that would extend this dynasty for 3 more championship runs. In a 3-team trade, the Minnesota Lynx would receive Sylvia Fowles, a 2-time WNBA Defensive Player of the Year and a 3-time All-Star. This was huge. Adding such a high-caliber player to the already core 4, they were immediately back at the top and scary. And it was like the perfect fit for Sylvia Fowles. They got off to a great start of the season and really got to work on their chemistry as the season unfolded. They would finish second in the league with a 22-12 record. So going into the playoffs, they were definitely confident. The Lynx only lost 1 game to the Candace Parker-led Sparks, and going into the second round, they swept the Mercury. But this is also the year Diana Taurasi sat out, so this could have been a different series and maybe a different playoffs overall. But the finals were set, and we got a rematch from 2012 with the Indiana Fever and the Minnesota Lynx meeting for the second time. The series would go to 5 games, with the Fever being led by Tamika Catchings and Brian January. The series was pretty close, with the first 4 games decided by 6 or less points. Game 5 would be played at home for the Lynx, and they would go off. Sylvia Fowles went off for 20 points, Rebekkah Brunson had 14 rebounds, and they kept Catchings to 18 points, walking away with their 3rd title in 5 runs at it. Sylvia Fowles won a well-deserved Finals MVP. Her first year on the team after forcing a trade from the Sky, it was like she was the most rested after all those years. She finished multiple games in the series top scorer or top rebounder, and in Game 2, she did both. This year was a good year for the franchise and a great one for Sylvia Fowles, who would re-sign with the team after a very successful season. 2016 got off almost perfectly for the defending champs, winning their first 13 games of the season, and again looking forward to a long run in the playoffs. They finished the 2016 season with a 28-6 record, going into the playoffs as the top seed. Minnesota advanced to the WNBA Finals, where they matched up with Candace Parker and the Los Angeles Sparks. The series was close, going back and forth, with the deciding Game 5 in Minnesota, but home court advantage was not enough for the Lynx to repeat as champions. In one of the greatest games in WNBA history, the Sparks emerged as champions for the first time since 2002 after regular season MVP Nneka Ogwumike dropped in a putback with 3.1 seconds left, a dizzying loss for the Minnesota Lynx, but what a game for the fans. They would go into 2017 mostly the same as far as the starting 5. They won the first 9 games and ended the season with the best record of 28-6. Sylvia Fowles was their leading scorer, but Maya Moore was right behind her, literally, with 18 points a game. Seimone Augustus was still putting up 14 and 5. Rebekkah Brunson was still giving you 10 and 6. Lindsay Whalen still had 7 points and 5 assists to dish out, and they still had Cheryl Reeve at the helm. But now, they had 8 years of experience playing together. They had championships together, broke records as a team, the years without making it to the playoffs. Back-to-back championship dreams crushed every time. The league was looking at a well-oiled machine. So it was no surprise when they made it to the playoffs, or taking out the Mystics after getting a bye to the semifinals. After which they would meet with the other team who got a bye to the finals, the Los Angeles Sparks. In a rematch from 2016, the stage was set and everyone was ready. The Sparks for a repeat, and the Lynx wanted to beat the team that took their repeat away for the second time. The first 2 games were very close, with each team taking a win. Another back and forth series, it would go to Game 5. The Lynx kept the momentum most of Game 5 and won in a strong fashion behind Sylvia Fowles' 20 rebounds. Sylvia Fowles would take home another Finals MVP, and the core 4 would win Minnesota their 4th franchise title. An amazing bookend to this 8-year run. 2018 would see the team try one more time, but they would be eliminated in the first round that year. That's 4 championships in 7 years with the same core. Dynasty level consistency, almost impossible to replicate today. And Cheryl Reeve's 4 Coach of the Year awards, she didn't just build a winner, she sustained excellence across an entire era. Honestly showing what happens when a franchise trusts their coach for the long haul, because even now she has some of her core 4 right beside her. Lindsay Whalen retired after the 2018 season, spending 15 years with the W. She received a coaching job at her alma mater, but today you can find her right next to Cheryl Reeves as an assistant coach for the Minnesota Lynx. And that goes for Rebekkah Brunson as well. Retiring just before the 2020 season, she was hired as an assistant coach for the Minnesota Lynx, and while she did do a little broadcasting on the side, you can find her right next to Cheryl Reeves as well. Seimone Augustus will retire after attempting to play for the Los Angeles Sparks in the 2021 season, but ended up joining their coaching staff instead. Today, you can find her on the sidelines with Coach Ken Mulkey, where she serves as an assistant coach at her alma mater, LSU. Although she didn't officially announce her retire until January 2023, Maya Moore would play her last season in 2018, focusing on her family and social justice advocacy. Today, Moore lives a private life with her family, although you can catch her sidelines rooting for UConn or the Minnesota Lynx. Now, the Lynx wouldn't have that first chip without Taj McWilliams-Franklin, a well-respected player with the hardware to back it up. After a 14-year career, she stepped into a few coaching roles, even doing a short stint with the Dallas Wings. Today, she is still involved with basketball by mentoring the next generation. You can find her in the Upshot League as the Vice President of Basketball Operations. The Lynx wouldn't have their last two chips without Sylvia Fowles. She's remembered as a Lynx, and a dominant one no less. After retiring, she took a break from basketball, officially, but still around. As the WNBA began to expand, she accepted a well-deserved role as an assistant coach with the Portland Fire. This Lynx team was undeniable, and if you got to witness it, you're definitely lucky. This was lightning in a bottle, and it was captured for 8 years. From chaos to dynasty, the Minnesota Lynx core didn't just win, they showed what sisterhood, sacrifice, and staying together could build, giving us the literal blueprint for greatness.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, players.